Hello and welcome to the first in this series of instructional videos all about building reports using Westbury's Service Management Intelligence Suite. To get us started, I'm going to show you how easy and simple it is to build your own reports, your own powerful reports, in under 30 seconds. Now, first of all, I'm going to show you around the user interface in case you're not familiar with it. Now, the screen we see here is where I'm going to build my query. On the left-hand side here, we have a group of all the objects available to us. Now, those are essentially database fields from your Service Manager database, but they're mapped so that they correspond with terms hopefully you're familiar with from using your Service Manager implementation. These are organized into a hierarchical view, much like you see in Microsoft Windows. Hopefully that should be familiar to you. And I should point out that I'm using Service Manager for the purposes of this, but it may be you're using Service Desk or Service Center, in which case you'll see essentially the same sort of user interface, just with a different list of objects on this left-hand side. Now, across on the right we have two panes. We have the Results Objects pane, into which we're going to drag and drop the objects that we want to use in our query. And below that we have the Query Filters pane, and this is where we can drag and drop objects that we want to narrow our results down by. Okay, so imagine that your boss sends you an email, or at least you post it, saying that he desperately needs to know which of the help desk work groups is fielding the highest number of critical priority calls. Now, essentially that's three pieces of information. That's a piece of information about the help desk work groups, that's a piece of information about the priority of calls, and it's a piece of information about the number of calls we're talking about. So that's actually three objects from the left-hand side, and this is a drag and drop interface. So all I'm going to do is find the objects in my tree over here and drag them across. So the first one we need, you'll see near the top, is fairly obvious, is the number of instance objects. So I'm just going to drag and drop that across to the Result Objects pane. Next one we need is the assignment group name, so that's going to tell us which of the work groups was responsible for each call, and again I'm just going to go and drag and drop that across. And the third one we need is the priority object right here, which will tell us the priority of the calls we're talking about. So again, just drag and drop that across. Now I want to narrow down my results. I don't want to return all the results in the database, I just want to give a sample, so I'm going to give a month's worth of data. So to do that I need to go and find the open date object, and I'm going to drag and drop that across, not to the Results Objects pane, but rather to the Query Filters pane, so I can filter my report based on the open date of the call. Now, if I click on this drop down here, you'll see some terms that you may be familiar with if you use Excel. And I'm going to choose the between function, because what I want to do is specify a range of dates, and I only want to return results that fall between that start and end date. So I'm just going to change this. It's coming up with today's date by default, and I'm just going to change that to July 1st, and my end date I'm going to change to July 31st. So I get a month's worth of data there. And that's everything I need to run my query. So I'm just going to go up here and hit the Run Query button, and hopefully that should return the results pretty quickly, which it does. Then we see it returns those results into a table, which is useful, certainly, but perhaps not as useful as it might be if we were to represent that data graphically. So if I go ahead and click on this Templates tab over here on the left-hand side, you'll see there's a table section, so you can apply different tables and format that differently. But what I want to do is use a chart, and I've just expanded this. So we see the bar chart section, and it's already highlighted the vertical grouped bar chart, which is the one I want to use today. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag and drop that across. So drag it and then drop it right on top of the table. And what that's going to do is convert the table into a chart. And there we go. I'm just going to size this out a little. And there we go. So we have lots of data about the work groups, about the number of calls they took, and which priority those calls were. And if I just right click on this chart and hit Edit Format, there's a checkbox here for legend, so I'm just going to turn that on. And I'm just going to turn this 3D one off because I prefer it in just a straight graphical format. There we go. Okay, so that's brought up the legend, and that helps us understand which of the bars on the chart represents which priority. So the information the boss asked for was which group had fielded the highest number of critical priority calls, and there we go, we can see that straight away looking for the blue bars, and we can see that land support was the group that fielded the most. Now, by including the amount of information I have here, what I've done is preempted the next question my boss is going to have, which is why did software not field that many critical calls? And so we're a step ahead, and we can see that actually software did field fewer critical calls than land support, but by far the highest number of high priority calls. So we're giving a level of detail that is more than my boss asked for, but is going to preempt his next question. I'm just going to do two quick things to finish off this report. I'm going to change the title. I'm going to do that just by double clicking on report title there, and I'm going to change this to my boss's report on work groups. Hit return. There we go, let's change the title, and I can move that around. There we go, and there we go. So that looks nice. Now the last thing I need to do, I've created this report, but I need to get the information to my boss. So I could ask him to come over and look at my screen and look at the data that way, but far easier in this situation is just if I go on to File and Send by Email Attachment as PDF. What that's going to do is open up a new email with the report attached as a PDF document. So I can just type in his email address, hit send, and he has that information on his desk in his inbox. And that's really all there is to it. As I say, it's very easy, and yet we've created a powerful report with some very complex data, and my boss is happy. Next time I'm going to be showing you one of my favourite reports, accountable versus non-accountable. See you next time.